Welcome to the Wild Type Podcast. I'm Lyssa Lizards.
I'm Neptune the Chameleon.
And we're your reptile girlies. This one's for the wild type of girls. All right. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yes, we hope you guys had a good, happy holidays.
I know.
Hopefully you're spending some time with your families and you're like going crazy and you're like, I need some space. And so you're listening to this episode.
Hopefully we had a good Christmas too. We're recording this pre-Christmas.
Yeah.
So
Well, we're feeling festive. We're rocking our holiday sweaters. I, of course, have my Christmas chameleon little sweater.
Mine is Halloween themed.
But you're a Halloween girly.
I am a Halloween girl. That is my favorite holiday. It is way better than Christmas in my personal opinion.
You gotta rep the spooky or those little puppies on there.
Yes. Little puppies
Spooky
and
puppies.
little ghost costumes. And I didn't get to wear this in the podcast for Halloween. So
we were filming already, but we knew the episodes wouldn't go live.
We knew they would go live in December. And so it didn't make sense, but I'm doing it anyway.
It's a holiday sweater. It totally counts.
Well, we have a great episode today. Today we are going to be talking about how do you name your pet reptiles?
Yes. And I think this is an exciting topic because I get asked all the time.
I know. It's so funny because to me, I just feel like it's a very personal choice and like a personal process that you go through when it comes to like planning your pet names. I personally plan mine. We'll get into that. But I just think it's interesting
and
that people ask so often.
Will comment like, hey, I just got this reptile. Like, what should I name it? And I'm like,
that's your choice. I can't give you that information.
So hopefully this podcast will inspire you and give you some ideas and you can see kind of how we go through naming our reptiles.
I know you have a very specific process that you go through. So what is yours?
A little bit. So Neptune was my very first one. And so there's a lot of weight with his name. I didn't even realize, but my entire brand is his name. And to the point where like no one knows my name in the reptile world, and that's intentional. But that means people call me like Neptune's mom. People call me Neptune directly. Like, hey, Neptune.
So funny. It's always so funny to me because I obviously know your name. I'm in on the secret. But it's always so funny to me because at expos and things like that, I always introduce you as Neptune the Chameleon or hear you introduce yourself. So
and people feel
fun.
bad when they DM me. They're like, sorry, I don't know your name. I'm like, Neptune's mom is fine.
It's fine. All good.
Yeah. But anyway, so Neptune has a lot of weight. And I didn't know when I picked out his name, like what all that would entail. But I made a list. I had the list on my refrigerator of just like potential.
You put it on your refrigerator?
Yeah. Well, it had a little magnet on it. So it just like, you know, those
so
little like grocery lists that are like the magnet. That's what it was.
That's so funny.
And so it just kind of sat on my refrigerator and like I already had his enclosure. I already like knew I was getting a chameleon. It was just a matter of picking the name. And I remember Pongo was a potential name, and that comes from 101 Dalmatians.
That's so you.
And I love that movie. Fast forward to today, I now own a Dalmatian.
I was gonna say
her name is not Pongo or Perdita, but that was a contender. Was Pongo from the movie? In Pixel was another one.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, this was before we met, right?
Yeah,
so like you didn't go through my
I was not here for this.
Process.
You guys are hearing this for the first time with me. Like I know why she chose her name and how, but I didn't know what the alternatives were.
Yeah. Pixel was, and I don't know what it was with the P names, but I thought Pixel would have been like
that actually is a very cute name. I really like that one.
Yeah, especially for like a reptile.
It's also not very common. I don't really hear that.
Yeah.
Often.
And I mean, it's different than like naming your dog because a dog's name like is something you have to like feel comfortable like yelling across, your yard or something to get their attention. And I wouldn't have picked Pixel or Pongo. And then Neptune was also on the list. There was a few others. I wish I still had the list just so I could like.
Why did you finally settle on Neptune then?
It is just the one that just like resonated with me. Like the two syllables.
You get a connection to them sometimes, just to the names alone.
Yeah. And Neptune the Chameleon just like was a very.
Rolled off the tongue.
Yeah. I really liked it. And so Neptune was what kind of stuck with me, and people think that like I'm super obsessed with outer space because of it. And don't get me wrong, I love outer space, but it's not my like I'm not.
It's not your obsession.
No, but like a new documentary comes out on Netflix, and like I'm gonna watch it, but I'm not like super into it.
No, I get that. Okay. That's a pretty good one.
And then I have a theme, right? Which is different than you because you don't have a theme. You have one-off.
I have all kinds of one-off names.
Yeah. So Neptune, again, I didn't realize, but he was the one that started basically naming all my other ones.
Because obviously you didn't pick Neptune because of a theme. What made you decide to continue with the theme? Because I feel like that's a choice.
So I was going to get a crested gecko, and typically you will get a baby and the babies come unsexed. So I wanted a gender neutral name. So if it ended up being a male or a female, I still had a name that like would kind of go with both. And that's a lot of pressure naming a baby cresty or like a gargoyle gecko or any of those that just aren't sexed until later on.
Totally.
And so I don't know why, but like Pluto came into my mind because I feel like Pluto could be a cute girl name or boy name.
Yeah, it's totally gender neutral.
So I had made the decision. I was like, I want to get a crested gecko. I didn't know exactly what they were going to look like, and I assumed I was going to get a baby. And like, I didn't even have any other names that like popped into my head. Like it was like Pluto, and I was like, love it, done. And I just thought, even for a girl name, it'd be
because sometimes it's that easy. Like what you just said is very interesting to me, because sometimes you don't even have other options.
No.
Like sometimes you have one name on the list, you know you love it, you know you want it, and there's no second guessing it. But then other times you crazy second guess it and you have a list of names. It's just interesting.
Yes. So Pluto I already had picked out. I ended up getting a crested gecko that was already a year and a half old.
Right.
So he was already a male.
I was with you when you got Pluto.
Yeah. He already had his junk in the trunk. If
we knew he was male.
If you know what I'm saying. So like Pluto just like sealed the deal. And not that I do think Pluto would be a very cute girl name, but
good too,
I feel like Pluto does have a little bit more of a masculine,
I guess, yeah. It could easily go either way, but it just fits him. Yeah. For sure.
So then that's how I got Pluto. And I have a couple others that I think are good story times, but I want to get to you because you are on the complete opposite side of it.
I'm all across the board. And I think for me, part of the reason I'm all across the board with the names and I have no desire to have a theme is because I'm really particular about this is twofold. One, I'm really particular about making sure that their name kind of either fits their species or fits their personality. And I could go either way. But I also think that the reason I'm a little bit scattered with my names is because my very first gecko, Charlie. I mean, come on. That's not
such like a human. It's like an old guy name.
Yes. And so it's just funny to me because I've had
but he's such a Charlie.
He's totally a Charlie. I mean, he is little old man like Charlie.
Derpy, smiley, 100%. Little face.
It's funny because it fits him perfectly. But I was just a 16-year-old kid picking out a name that I thought was cute. So like I had no theme because I was 16 when I got my first. Yeah. So I think that just set me up to not have a theme long term.
Like he wasn't planning on being a theme. Like I could have gone from Neptune to like from Pixel, right? And I could have named, Pluto Pixel instead. But like I just loved how cute it would be to be Neptune and Pluto. And I wasn't planning on getting, this is not what everyone says. I wasn't planning on getting a lot more reptiles. Yeah. So I was like, I don't need to like lock myself into something where like I could come up with a bunch of things.
You accidentally did.
Oops. Luckily there's lots of planets.
Oh yeah.
Mine solar system.
Mine's just really all over the place. Like I would say for a long time. So I plan mine out in the sense that like I have a list in my phone that I've been keeping for years. And it is a meticulous list, not of names, but of species that I want.
I know there is a snow hognose.
Yes.
And so you already have a name picked out.
I'm not telling it because I'm not going to let any of you steal it.
But it's a very clever related to the species name for that particular animal. Yes. So like if and when you already know you have this name picked out.
So my list, it like includes the morph, the species, the potential colors, male, female, and then I like write down all the potentials. And like as I think about names over time, like when I see that species at expos or whatever, because I am the type where like I have a list, and when I find the animal that I want, it's like, okay, now I'm ready.
Yep.
And so I usually will have at least a few name ideas in mind, and a lot of mine are all over the board. Like some of them are from pop culture. Some of them just, my amphibian Kermit is an amphibian, but she's a girl.
But it's also Kermit, pop culture, right? From Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. But it's like, it goes with amphibian, and that's like a known amphibian name, but she's a girl, so it doesn't quite make sense, but it fit. I don't know.
You know what I've realized? We've been friends for so long that there's only like 3 of your animals that I wasn't there for when you named them.
Yeah, that's very true.
Kermit, Charlie,
Barney.
Yep. I think there was one more. I was going through this earlier. I was trying to go
Guess
through
which ones.
Yeah, but the gist of it is I've been here for like almost every single one of your animals. You've named.
You've not only have you been there for like helping me pick out the names or like thinking through that with me, you've also actually physically been there when I've gotten the majority of my reptiles. Yeah, like actually present.
I was the one who was holding baby Hazel in the little snake bag when we were driving home.
Oh yeah.
So one I really like is Draco and Drusilla.
Yeah.
And they have since passed.
Yes.
But I love that their names were the D and D, and like you got them at the same time. You knew they were male and female. You were set on Draco, but I think you were going back and forth.
So that one in particular, I really wanted. I was having a hard time. I had several different name options. I really wanted them to be villain names because they were
satanic.
Yes. So we didn't even say that. That's my bad. So Draco and Drusilla were a satanic leaf-tailed gecko pair that I had previously. And I really wanted their names to be villainous vibes.
Yes.
Like that
and
was
if you
really
haven't
important.
seen a satanic leaf-tailed gecko, pause this right now. Go look them up.
They're so freaking cute, you guys. Yeah. They're like 3-4 inches long. They're like the cutest little guys.
They totally have a villain, evil.
They've got these perfect little evil-looking
vibes.
Just evil vibes. So I wanted the names to have evil vibes. And I was pretty locked in on Drusilla because if you're a Buffy the Vampire stan, that is me.
I thought it was the other way around, that you were locked in Draco.
No, Drusilla was my like...
Oh, that was the one.
Yes,
okay.
No, because so Drusilla is one of the most iconic villainesses of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I am obsessed. I've loved that name for years. So I was really locked in on Drusilla, but I also really love Draco, but I kind of wanted them to have names that like were, you know, from the same show or from the same movie or whatever. But I ended up just loving Draco and Drusilla.
But the D&D is just so cute.
I will miss those little critters forever and the perfect names. I just loved those names.
So that's something to consider too, is like if you have a pair or you have two separate reptiles that you're planning on mating. So I had Apollo and Luna. Yeah. Now there was a very, very, very high contender name pair besides Apollo and Luna. You probably forgot it, and I'm going to say it, and you're going to remember what it was. Wanda and Cosmo.
Oh, I did know this because
I almost named them Wanda and Cosmo. I was so close.
Wait, tell them why.
Okay, so Cosmo to me is still like outer spacey, so that one I was okay with naming him Cosmo. And then, but Wanda didn't quite fit. Right. But it's from Fairly Odd Parents. Yes. Wanda and Cosmo, which are a couple. Yes. And when I got Apollo and Luna, Apollo was green and Luna was pink.
She was the cutest little pink nugget, you guys. Oh my gosh. She was like gorgeous when she was pink. Oh.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, how cute to have a green and pink chameleon and then Cosmo being green in Fairly Odd Parents and then Wanda being pink. I was like, this is so cute. But then I found out that the females, as they get older, lose their pink and end up turning green. And then Wanda doesn't fit the theme.
It didn't fit the theme. And then also, if she was no longer going to be pink, it also just wouldn't have made sense.
Yeah, because then when people come over, I'm like, oh yeah, her name's Wanda. I'm like, Wanda, why is she Wanda? I was like, well, she was pink, but she's not anymore.
Yeah, you don't want to have to explain that over and over again.
And I was totally fine deviating from the theme. Like I was very set on Wanda and Cosmo.
Because Cosmo is still theme adjacent.
Yeah, but Wanda totally is not related. So then I went with Apollo and Luna, which are both related to the moon. So that still like ties them in.
I love the name
ties
Luna.
them in together, and that allowed me to like branch away from just being planet specific and more outer space,
interstellar, if you will.
Celestial type names. Love it. So I was like, okay, so if I get chameleons in the future, then they'll still like.
Do you think you'll always stick with the theme?
Well, now I have 5 that I've named outer space themed. My dog is not outer space themed. I could have done that, but her name's separate. But
even my dog's name is completely random. Like,
I feel like my chameleons are kind of locked into
that's fair.
Outer space theme. And again, it's not planet specific. Like, so I could do like a comet or something.
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
And
there's so many options, I will say. Like your name list is very long.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like if I branch out into a completely different species, like got a tortoise or something.
Yeah.
And then I could.
You do love the tortoises. You do love the
Every
tortoises.
time we go to the expo, I'm just a little bit closer to getting one.
You're a sucker for the tortoises, for sure.
And fish.
Yeah.
I really like aquatics.
We both really, really want to get into to seahorse tanks at some point.
Oh my gosh, those mini seahorses we saw.
We went to Aquashella and we got sucked in hard.
I feel like this is a little tangent for a second, but like reptile keepers and like aquatic aquarium people, whatever they're called.
Kind of weird.
Absolutely.
We're the same vibe, just in different fonts.
And it's hilarious because the people at Aquashella are like, oh, I could never keep reptiles. And like, you and I are like,
fish
shocked.
keeping so much harder.
Like, how do you, but we were asking all the questions, like the lighting and the coral and the substrate. And we're probably using like, I don't even know if they call it substrate.
We definitely kept words. Like using reptile words for like fish things, and they would correct us, which was just really funny.
And they had a Zoom Med booth, and it was all reptile products, just blue instead of green, which I thought was
great,
hilarious.
Anyways, back to the topic.
Okay, so I think another one of your pets we have to talk about when it comes to naming is Tarzan.
Yes, so that's easily one of my favorites. I'm very, very proud of that one.
So first off, who is Tarzan?
Tarzan is my yellow anaconda. We've talked about him a million times.
Yes.
He's my baby. I'm obsessed with that little thing. Not little, but you know what I mean. But I chose Tarzan specifically, and back it up just a little bit. So when it came to yellow anacondas, you know this, but I was very, very, very particular about, I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted a yellow anaconda because they have a really, really bad reputation.
It had to be the right yellow anaconda.
It had to be the right yellow anaconda. And I wasn't just going to get any yellow anaconda because of their size. Like, I was not going to commit to an animal unless I knew that it could be tamed down well enough for it to be handleable at that size.
Yes.
Because I'm a girl. I'm, less than 6 foot. I'm not that tall. My husband is not a reptile guy. He would be able to help me in an emergency situation, but I just wasn't. But
you want to feel confident as the keeper to be able to help the animal in need, make sure that they're okay. Yes. Like, at the very least, being able to do wellness checks and health checks, take them to the vet. Not that you were wanting to like handle him every day, but there is a certain level of comfortability you have to have when owning an animal.
Right. And so I went into getting a yellow anaconda thinking, okay, if this is not an animal that can be tamed down within a year or so, I might have to reconsider permanently keeping this animal. So I basically went into it like that. And with that said, like, I had a name picked out that I wanted, but I was hesitant about everything. So this was one that was a little bit weird for me. But I wanted, in my dream scenario, I wanted a yellow anaconda that was going to be, quote unquote, the king of my little jungle. That was like what I kept saying in my head. And then when I started thinking of names, I was like, okay, what is a name that's like worthy of the king of the jungle? And I immediately was like, oh, duh, Tarzan.
You didn't want to name him George for George of the Jungle?
That would have been really cute.
I will say. Get that movie reference?
I loved that movie. That was a fabulous movie.
George,
was it a 90s or 2000 movie?
90s.
Okay, I thought so. Sure. I was like, there's no way that was in the 2000s.
Swinging from a tree. Yeah.
Love that. Oh, that's a good jingle. But so I picked the name Tarzan because I wanted him to be the king of my little jungle. But I knew that there was a potential, and luckily he tamed down fabulously. He was the yellow anaconda, and I went into getting him knowing that he had been very handleable up until that point.
He checked every single box and then some. He's been a dream for you. But I think that was really cute with Tarzan. Another one that I love is Scooby.
Yeah, little Scooby. He's my Chihuahua gecko. He's a cutie pie. To me, Chihuahua geckos, their coloration, whatever, they just gave me dog vibes. I don't know why. Maybe that's just like in my head.
Little googly eyes.
Yeah, like they just gave me weird dog vibes. I don't know why. I genuinely don't know.
Scooby was, I'm going to use the word impulse purchase, but not in the way, because he was on the list. So he was a species you were planning on getting, you were wanting to get.
And at this point, I already had a crested gecko and a gargoyle gecko. Did I have my lychee at that point yet?
Yeah. Okay, and Draco Drusilla.
And I had a lychee and Draco and Drusilla. So like I felt very, very confident because I already had New Caledonian species. Yeah. So,
yeah. And you already had the enclosure and everything else. Like it wasn't a matter of that. You just weren't going into that day expecting to get him. So that was the only part that was impulsy, but you were fully prepared. It wasn't a matter. It wasn't that kind of an impulse purchase. Totally. It just
once the deeper you get into the hobby, the less of an impulse it becomes.
Maybe you should phrase like an unexpected purchase.
Yes, 100%.
Because it wasn't impulsive in that you were like, unprepared. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna get this in.
But I definitely did not go into it with that plan.
Did you have Scooby already picked out as a name? Because I feel like he was afterwards.
I'm pretty sure that was one of the ones that I had on my list for if I had a Chihuahua gecko or if I got a Chihuahua gecko, I liked the name Scooby for the Chihuahua species.
Okay.
So that was one that wasn't picked out for him in particular.
Okay. Got it. So, but you already had a name planned out. Yes. Okay. So he's a pop culture from Scooby-Doo. Yeah. Another one you have from pop culture is Voldy.
Oh, okay. So Voldy was another kind of impulse purchase.
He took a long time to name.
Yes,
you weren't set on him.
Because I had like legless lizards on the list, but it wasn't one that I had a list of names for yet.
But you were going back and forth on his name.
I was really struggling on that one. I think it took me over a month to actually confirm a name for him.
Definitely the longest.
That was a really, really long one for me. And that was because I realized real fast that this animal had a very specific personality.
For sure.
And so I wanted to make sure that I did my due justice of like getting to know him well enough to give him a name that was worthy of his personality.
Totally. But I feel like Voldy was the only contender.
I don't know if we said this. Voldy is short for Voldemort.
Oh, yes. Yeah. If that was not obvious. Yeah, we've got Draco, Harry Potter, and then Voldemort.
So legless lizards, European legless lizards, Sheltopusics, if I'm saying that correctly, I don't know. I butcher names all the time. Yeah, it's fine. But so their species, if you are familiar with them, they look a little evil.
They're not my favorite.
Yeah, they're very off-putting.
The day that you got him,
she was like, are you sure? Moon.
You were so excited. Oh my gosh, I can't believe there's this legless. You were going on and you were just beaming joy, and the whole time
and she was like sitting over there in the corner like, I don't like this thing. It creeps me out.
100%. Not my thing.
But I was hyped. And so he was another one that just the look of his face looked evil to me.
Yeah, because it's very pointy.
Yes, very pointy. And he kind of has these like weird slanty eyebrows.
And the color of them is very Voldemort, very pale, Voldemort. Kind of like, you got his funky nose and beady little eyes.
And I will say, I didn't love I think part of the reason I struggled with picking his name and confirming that it was Voldemort was like, he was a Voldemort. I mean, it was just so obvious that he was Voldemort.
There wasn't even another contender. Like
he's feisty. He's crazy, weird. He has one brain cell. Like he's so bizarre. He's the most bizarre creature that I own.
It totally is.
And so Voldemort fit him perfectly, but I didn't love the name Voldemort because it was such a long name and none of my other pet names were that long. So I ended up just calling him Voldy all the time.
Yeah.
So
it's very fitting. Yeah. And I think it's cute because in his enclosure you have little Slytherin like decor and stuff like that.
I've got one of the Slytherin ties. I've got a wand. I even have and I'm actually redoing his enclosure, so TBD on if these are going to stay in there forever. But I even have like a Halloween skull in there that I did.
It's very fitting.
I put a little. It's so messed up. I put a little hairy scar and put hairy glasses on him.
I did not know about the scar. I knew about the wand and the tie. I might have not noticed the little little scar in the enclosure.
So there might be a dead hairy in one of my enclosures.
Oops. Sorry. It's fine. It's fine.
I had to.
Voldy's a cute one.
Yeah, he's a great one.
I recently got Venus, who is my newest chameleon. And so
your female panther.
My female panther. Now her name was picked out back when I had Neptune.
Oh yeah.
Her name was picked out years
long
in advance. Because if you don't know, female panther chameleons are usually like a peachy, orangey kind of color.
Little sherbet colors.
And I was like, oh, if I ever got a female, I might breed her to Neptune. And so I thought Venus would be so...
It's a great name.
So cute.
I love that name.
Because it's feminine, right? It's a female, very like one of the gods, And Venus as a planet, it has like the reds and oranges.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Yeah. I'm so not a planet person. So I didn't even.
No, it's very orange, red, like kind of like Mercury, the planet. You know how that's a red planet?
100%.
So Venus is like very like fireball, like kind of. And so I was like, oh, that'll be so cute for like a peachy orange chameleon to go with it, and it's female. And like if I got 2 panthers, Neptune and Venus, they'd be super cute.
It's so cute. I love them.
So I already had her name picked out, but then I was like, is that too obvious? Like when I did decide to get Venus, I wasn't sure if I should go with that or if I should branch out.
But there are some names that are way too obvious. Do you want to talk about those?
Oh, like what?
So for me personally, I get real sick of lizards that are named Lizzie.
Oh, if we're going for the cliche classics.
Yeah, there's so many.
Okay, how many do you think are going to be named Leo because of the movie?
Oh my gosh, so many. So many lizards are about to be named Leo.
Leo was already popular to begin with.
Leo's already popular because of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. A lot of people will name their
from what, Leonardo?
Turtles. Yeah, right? Leonardo or Donatello, Raphael. Yeah. Like you see tortoises or turtles named that all the time. So those are other kind of overused ones. But I already know which one. A few of yours that you think are the most overused.
Do you know how many chameleons I know named Pascal?
So many.
And why are they named Pascal? Well, that's because of the movie Tangled.
Yep.
Which I recently made a YouTube video on why Tangled hurt the hobby.
Yeah, that's a great video. Anybody listening should go and watch that one.
Yeah, check it out. Neptune the Chameleon on YouTube. And I know we do have plans to do an episode on how movies have both helped impacted both positively and negatively for the reptile hobby. But names are a big one, right? Pascal. I have known so many veiled chameleons named Pascal, named Rango.
Oh yeah,
from the movie Rango,
big one.
Which he doesn't even really look like a chameleon.
No,
he's like a funky, weird,
it's very
depth
strange
lizard
to me. Yeah, I don't love that one.
So there's quite a few named Rango, and then Karma from the song Karma Chameleon.
I always forget about that one.
Karma. So it to me is interesting because it's generational. So when someone DMs me and they're like, my chameleon Karma, like that song's from the 80s.
Yeah.
Right. And then Rango's like early 2000s.
Right.
And then Tangled is like 2010s. Yep. So it's very interesting to see the generations. And now I think we're going to see a lot of Leos because of the new movie, which is
super cute movie, very kid friendly though. So there will definitely be a lot of lizards named Leo.
Yeah. Are there any common snake names that you see?
Ka is one from the Jungle Book, but to be honest, I don't see that one that much. It's just kind of one of those that like when you see it, you know what it's from. It's
Does
very
anyone
obvious.
name their ball python Bali?
No, I'm trying to think. I do see like Rocky a lot because they're known to be like the rocks of the reptile world because they don't move a lot.
I feel like people give ball pythons the most like quirky, like marshmallow.
Random names. Yeah, random names.
Like because they have so much like little derpy faces.
I just thought of one that's very overused, which is just noodle or linguine or like pasta names.
Okay,
you see that all the time. Talk about
food names for a second? I've seen so many chameleons named taco, avocado, French fry. I'm like, okay, if you like French fries, I mean, by all means, name your chameleon.
Yeah,
French fry.
I'm all for it. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, there's some quirky things. So I think the gist of it is whether you have a theme or not, I think doing first letter themes are super cute.
I think that's really cute too, and the alliteration of it, like with mine, like with Draco and Drusilla, that was so cute. I loved the D&D. So having a letter theme is always really cute. I like that.
I think E's would be a lot of fun to.
That would be kind of hard.
What?
How many names are
Ellie,
there?
Emerald, Eleanor.
Okay, I guess there's more than I thought. I don't know. That would be very cute. It's just definitely unusual. I don't know what an
E-boy name is.
Yeah.
Anyways, but you could have some fun with it. But I think like
there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. You can pick a theme, you can pick a letter, you can go completely at random. Like I know people who literally will not pick their like pet name out until they've gotten to know the pet for a long time. I've done that before. I did it with Voldemort. I do it with some of mine. It just kind of depends if I have had a name in mind yet or not.
Yeah, I think there's no one way to do it, but I would encourage you if you're trying to name your animal Pascal or Leo, if you want to, by all means, go for it, but just like maybe challenge yourself to think a little bit outside the box because it is really fun when someone does compliment you on your pet names.
And I love, personally for me, I love finding out people's pet names because sometimes they are so unique, so random, so fun, and it just gives a lot of like interesting inspo.
Yeah.
So
I think so. One I did want to ask you about is your African fat tail.
Oh yeah. That one was kind of random, to be honest. honest.
Because you asked your TikTok followers.
Yeah,
you like left it open.
That's actually the only time I've ever done that. I was like getting different name ideas, but I did end up going with, somebody did say, so my African fat-tailed gecko, her name is Nessie, and that is after the Loch Ness Monster, which I was obsessed with as a kid. Yeah. I've just always been obsessed with like the theories and the myths and all the stuff about the Loch Ness Monster. So I loved the name Nessie. It was one that was on my list, but I did get a couple of comments that said Nessie.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up picking that one.
I think you kind of put it out there as like little feelers to see, what people were coming up with.
Yeah. And again, I have my list, but sometimes it's really fun to see what other people come up with.
Yeah,
I love that.
I think so. Big thanks to Pangea Reptile for the support of the podcast. They're one of the leading companies for reptile supplies, lizards, and their world-famous gecko food.
They just released their brand new micro feeding dishes made specifically for baby or micro geckos. These smaller dishes can be mounted to smooth surfaces and even branches and will help stop your gecko from getting food all over their enclosure. If you own a gecko, you know exactly how nice it'll be to not have to clean food paw prints everywhere.
Head on over to PangeaReptile.com to check out these new micro dishes along with their other amazing products like their face packs for shipping, chameleon kits, and gecko food. We have some very exciting news in the chameleon world. Our friend Bill Strand from Chameleon Academy is officially working with custom reptile habitats to launch a new line of arboreal cages.
With his 40 plus years of experience working with reptiles, we just know these new enclosures are going to be next level. The first cages in the Chameleon Academy line even have special features specifically for bioactive environments.
Both Bill and Custom Reptile Habitats are huge advocates for advancing reptile husbandry, so we are thrilled about these new enclosures. Visit ChameleonAcademy.com for more information.
We want to thank Josh's Frogs for supporting the Wild Type podcast. Josh's Frogs is an online animal and reptile supply retailer who you may see at your local expo. We always love stopping by their booth.
They only sell captive bred animals and their sales support animal conservation and research. They offer a large variety of feeder insects for your pet reptiles and amphibians that will arrive right to your doorstep. A 3-day life insurance policy is included, making it so easy to feed your reptile nutritious bugs.
So if you're looking for some crickets, use code TheWildType10 to save 10% on any sized crickets from joshsfrogs.com.
So one thing we wanted to talk about too is how the podcast got its name.
Oh yeah, we went through a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of different options.
We intentionally did not do like an intro episode where it's like, welcome to the podcast. I am Neptune. You know, we'll eventually, like over time, you guys will learn who we are and what the podcast is all about. But I think it'll be fun now that we're a couple episodes in to briefly talk about
the name. That was a journey. Yeah. I would say it took almost a month.
At least
maybe 2 months. We sat on it for a while, and then we had a really amazing name that we loved.
I'm still sad about this.
I know I am too. We were dead set. Do you want to say it?
Yeah, it was going to be Scales and Tails.
Yeah, we were dead set on it.
Being spelled Tails.
Mm-hmm. We had our hearts set on it.
Wait, no, Tales.
Yeah, Tales.
Like story tales.
Like story tales.
Not animal tales.
Mm-hmm.
Tales. You get what I'm saying though. Yeah. Scales and Tails. Where it'd be like a mash of reptiles and like lifestyle-y things, which is what this podcast is totally about.
Oh yeah, it still rings true.
And we were so set on it. We were so excited.
We were committed. We were coming up with so many cool different things based on the
name.
We
were getting like social handles locked in, all this. Yeah. And then we found out there's already a podcast called Scales and Tails, and it's about mermaids.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those really cool people who is like a professional mermaid or something. So shout out to her.
Killing it. And she's got millions of subscribers on YouTube. Yeah. Who knows how many listeners on podcasts.
But we obviously couldn't steal the name.
Yeah. Because there's one thing of like if there's a podcast that's like similarly named, but like it doesn't have any episodes for like a long time, or you know,
or even they're just like inconsistent, like don't have
or it's completely unrelated to like what we're doing. Right. You know, like you can't. There's only so many words and so many names you can come up with, especially 100%. When you're in a niche like reptiles, right? Yeah. Like the word wild, yes, it's in our name, but like that's not like.
It's not ownable.
There's tons of podcasts that have the name wild in it.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But so how did we end up officially?
Yeah, so we did get set on the word wild because we wanted something that was related to the reptile industry and kind of jungle vibes, you know, but like we wanted something that wasn't on point? Like we didn't want to just be like we wanted reptile girlies or something.
Like, and we did have that. So we again had just like a huge list of podcast names.
There was probably over 20 names on there.
There was over 30. I mean, we had brain dumped ideas for like weeks.
Repti, this girly, that jungle,
Repti tails. Like there were so many things. And then we kind of came to the conclusion that we wanted it to be a little more generic. We didn't want it to be completely sold on just reptiles, but we wanted it to have a nod to reptiles.
Yes, and so we were trying to come up with things that, like, if you're a reptile keeper, then like right. But if you don't know, it still kind of makes sense. And so it was actually you who came up with wild type being like wild type ball pythons and wild type beta fish and wild type axolotls.
Yeah.
Right.
So for anyone who doesn't know, with ball python morphs, which is basically like the coloration of them.
Yeah.
Most reptile keepers know this, but on the off chance that you don't.
Hey, let's talk about it. Yeah.
So basically there's all these different morphs and different genetics and different things that these animals are bred for certain colors. But the morph that is naturally occurring in the wild is what's called a wild type morph.
Yes.
And that's in beta fish.
It's their naturalistic, like it's normal morph, right? Is
what type of coloration you would see in the wild most often is the wild type. So it's a subtle nod. So a lot of people know it. A lot of people don't.
But then it also has a spinoff of like the wild type of girl, right? Mm-hmm. Or a wild type of keeper or whatever. Because I think we'll probably have some male listeners and stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But just kind of being like the oddball, right? Like the one that kind of stands out, that doesn't quite fit in. And like we feel that all the time being reptile keepers. And so we felt like it was a really good combination of all the different attributes that we were wanting this podcast to embody.
With a cute little wink to people who know that
if you know,
wild type is a thing.
Exactly.
So it was a good choice. I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're kind of stuck with it now.
Yeah, we don't have a choice now. We're locked in.
Stuck with it now. Yeah. But anyways, so very exciting to do that.
And it was so much fun putting that together. And it very much was reminiscent of the process that you go through when you name your pets. It's pretty similar.
Yep. Lots of lists, lots of brainstorming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's how we've named a lot of our pets and how we named the podcast. So let us know, do you guys have a theme with your pets? How do you come up with your names? We'd love to hear about it.
Tell us your process.
Yeah.
Because it might change ours. You never know.
Yes. I'm sure there's be more pets to name in the future.
Well, I think that wraps up our main topic.
Absolutely. What do we have this week?
Let's move it on over to our segment, which we hope you know and love, Reptile Mom Hot Takes.
Dun, dun, dun. Wait,
What's our hot take for the day?
That's like sad music. Should we go do do do? Like
either one.
Like happy sound effect. Yeah. So today we're talking about what you hear all the time in reptile keeping. Surviving is not thriving.
Yes.
And just because your reptile is alive does not mean they're living their best life.
Exactly. So when you hear surviving isn't thriving, it means exactly that. Just because your animal is alive does not mean that you're properly caring for it.
Yes. And so this is something that we see a lot more now because we are moving towards more naturalistic environments, more bioactive type enclosures. So when we're thinking of, say, 5-10 years ago, when tub keeping, very
was
like
the norm, the standard,
sterile environments where it was like fake plants and paper towels and like that's how you kept your reptiles. So yes, they are alive, but are they thriving?
And different people have different definitions of thriving as well.
Yep.
Some people consider thriving, I would say specifically in the ball python world, a lot of people, breeders, whoever, believe that the word thriving means that the animal is eating, because ball pythons can definitely be picky.
Sure.
So that obviously does kind of equate to thriving, but that's also just should be happening no matter what.
Eating is a necessity. Yes.
100%. So, a lot of people equate just consistently eating, because like I said, when they're picky, they can go off food. So if a snake isn't going off of food, that's considered a success.
Sure.
But is that thriving though?
Right. Are they living their best life?
Right. And so for me personally, I don't know about you, you can give your take too, but for me, thriving equates to, are they showing all of the natural behaviors that they would be showing, expressing, doing in the wild? For me, that's my definition of thriving.
No, I think, how do you define an animal doing its things? And so that's exactly it, is all the things that they would do in the wild. what gets me about this is when you see people who have inadequate, we're not even just talking like, bare bottoms. I'm talking like one plant, one branch in like a chameleon enclosure that's way too small, incorrect lighting, You know that everything about their care is incorrect, and you are offering help. You're trying to teach them, hey, have you considered doing this? And they say they're fine, they're alive. And that to me is the piece of surviving.
Yes.
Just because the animal is alive does not mean you're providing them adequate. We're not even talking going above and beyond.
I was going to say, I would even take it a step further of like, your animal might even be healthy. It might be totally healthy and not dying or in need of rescue. It might be making it through.
Yes, there's definitely two different kind of like categories where it's like, okay, you are doing the minimum, but is that the best that you can do? And then there's a category of you are doing below the minimum.
100%.
The animal is alive.
But barely. It's barely hanging on by a thread.
But because they're alive, you feel like you are a successful reptile keeper.
And I feel like actually the majority that we see is people who are okay with doing the bare minimum. And because
in the chameleon world, it's people who are doing less than the minimum.
That's very true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
We get the extremes, unfortunately.
And also, chameleons are also notorious for, if they're not set up correctly, they're gonna fail. I mean, there's no wiggle room. They're not super forgiving.
And there's a lot of components, right? There's so many different pieces and elements that come to chameleon care versus, say, like caring for a ball python or a leopard gecko. Like you have the foundations.
Like, I would say there are animals that are more quote unquote hardy and can withstand a lot of mistakes. And then there are animals that are unforgiving. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, in the chameleon world, it's definitely the latter of, they are not even, they're so far from thriving that it's like they're barely on the verge of being alive.
But then the keepers are like, but they're alive. And I'm like, not for long. It's so heartbreaking, but it's so true.
It's tough.
So that's definitely a good point. And then what you're saying is like, can you take it from the minimum to the next level? And I think a part of this is the minimum enclosure size recommendations.
Yeah. And that's something that like is forever changing.
Yes.
We, I think, talk about this in another episode. Like I had just upgraded all of my New Caledonian geckos, and then now all of a sudden the standard is bigger than what I had just gotten.
Why are we doing just the minimum enclosures? And like, if that's as big as like is available, like for example, chameleon enclosures, they only commercially come in a 2 foot by 4 foot. You have to custom make something in order to make it bigger. So it's like, okay, could you go bigger? Sure. But like realistically, this is what we have to offer.
Right. It's like what's easily available. But
with geckos and ball pythons, we have tons of PVC enclosures that come in variety of sizes.
Now we do. We didn't always.
Okay. But even with glass enclosures, you could have gone like, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying you
anybody
as in like
could have gone bigger.
Could have gone bigger. And I know I did with Pluto, my crested gecko, right? I think when I got him, the minimum was what, like 16 or 18
24. That
was that but that's what I have now.
No, you have an 18 by 18 36.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's what it was. Sorry.
Yeah.
Numbers are hard sometimes, okay? Especially when you're going with
I got you. Don't worry.
All the dimensions. That's what it was, though. So we were at an expo, and I was getting his enclosure, and like expos usually get pretty good deals on enclosures and stuff. And so they had the skyscraper, which is the 18 by 36.
Why not go ahead and get it? And that should be the mentality for more people.
And it was just vertical space. It's not like it was any wider, which it can definitely be harder to like.
Vertical space is always better. If you can give the vertical space and they're an arboreal species, you should.
Yeah, and he was my second reptile, right? Yeah. So I was like,
you had all the space in the world at the time,
and I wasn't planning on getting any more anytime soon. Jokes on me again. But
classic. We all think we're not going to get any more, and then here we are with 10 plus. So.
Yeah, but so I was like, why not go bigger? And fast forward to now, that is now the minimum recommendation for crested geckos.
Yeah, that's what people are recommending is 18 by 18 by 36. I'm planning on upgrading mine to 24 by 18 by 36 because it's now available in PVC, and it wasn't available in that size before.
Yeah, so that's props to the reptile industry as we're progressing forward, which again, I think is partly why the surviving versus thriving conversation is coming to light, because we can now more accessibly do better.
Yeah, it's
we have
easier
more knowledge
to do better
on bioactive enclosures. We have larger enclosures that are lighter, like physically lighter, and they're in an affordable price points, right? And we have the knowledge. We have tons of reptile influencers who are leading the charge.
And most of that wasn't even available or possible even 5 years ago.
Right.
So it's like these are very recent improvements in the hobby, which I love.
So this is an opportunity for our listeners to really like think about it and challenge yourself. Could you be doing better? Do you have the means both financially and space-wise to do a larger enclosure? I don't know of any species, and maybe you do, that would be harmed by a larger enclosure as long as it is set up correctly and has enough places to hide, to feel safe in.
Well, and as long as you can, I would say like the main thing is like as long as you can ensure that they're eating and finding their food properly, then it shouldn't really be an issue.
Yeah, because why not go bigger?
Totally.
Right? Like if you're able to, I don't know, I just think that is wonderful.
And that's why for me, like, you know, like she said, challenge yourself to, you know, see what you could be doing better, because I for certain could be doing a lot better, and I'm currently working towards doing better.
Yeah, we certainly
we're
all are.
We're all in progress with it. Nobody, trust me, if anybody out there is like, I'm 100% content with every single one of my enclosures, they're a liar.
We can always be doing better. And it doesn't necessarily have to be getting a larger enclosure. Like I understand that is a lot, but it could simply be going from fake plants to live plants.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like that is a very simple, realistic change that will benefit the quality of life for your animal.
Absolutely. And pro tip, it definitely helps with your humidity levels depending on what what that species requires. That's an easier way. It makes your life easier. It makes their life better. Why not?
Totally. And I get sometimes like when you're first getting into reptile keeping, like if you're not a plant person, like that also comes with a big learning curve. But I think that's something that we should all strive towards. And I remember the day that my chameleon enclosures became all live plants.
Oh yeah.
I was such a moment. Proud. And let me tell you this, if you don't have a plant LED bar on your enclosures, that's a game changer. Because my plants kept dying, or they'd be small and they wouldn't be growing. So I was expecting them to fill in some empty spaces, and they wouldn't, so then I would have to put fake stuff in there to kind of like give some coverage. Then I got an LED bar. Game changer.
Yeah.
Those plants, now I'm cutting them back because I'm like, whoa, chill.
I feel pretty, as I'm going through my process as a reptile keeper and learning and growing and changing and everything, that is something that I have really become firm in, that like you have to have plant lighting. This is another like Reptile Mom hot take, but maybe it's that like plant LED is not optional. Yeah. If you're trying to go fully bioactive in any enclosure, it's going to be nearly impossible to actually like have those plants thrive, grow, take over the enclosure without a plant bar.
In the enclosure too. Right. Like, yes, there's benefit to the plants, but especially when you're working with arboreal enclosures that have a lot of height to them, then it's so dark at the bottom.
For real.
And so having those plant LEDs not only is beneficial for the plants, but also just brings more light within the enclosure itself. So are they necessary for the health of your animal? No. But are they necessary in order to get your enclosure to thrive to the level that it needs to be?
Do they help?
Yes. Big time. Big time. So I would encourage you all to look into getting a plant LED bar, because I feel like those are game changers. I know there's a lot of our listeners who are very opinionated on the surviving versus thriving thing. I see it in people's TikTok bios all the time.
It's in mine for sure.
Yeah. So let us know your thoughts on and maybe some things that you're doing actively to try and improve
or like what
your
is
stuff.
Like we talked about, everybody's definition of thriving might look different. What does that look like for you?
Yes, please begin. I'd love to hear your opinion. I think that's a wrap on another episode.
One more.
Yes.
I think this is number 7.
Number 7. Yeah.
Knocking them out.
We're going to hit the double digits.
I'm so excited. So excited.
Well, we hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. Spend some time with your critters, your
Happy
family.
New Year. We'll be talking to you right after New Year's.
Yes. Absolutely. But we're looking forward to it, guys. Thank you again. Be sure to follow the Wild Type Podcast on all things social media. I'm Neptune the Chameleon.
And I'm Lyssa Lizards.
And we'll talk to you later, Reptile Girlies.
Bye, guys.
Bye.